Hi, welcome to the Dr. Purvis podcast, helping you to crack the code of good mental health. I've treated over 5,000 people in nearly 30 years, and that's in both face-to-face therapy and through my online programs. I can show you exactly what you need to do to feel great. Hi, welcome to the Dr. Purvis podcast. So let me ask you a question. Are you the captain of your own ship? Now, it's coined as a question, but really the answer is probably not. And so, in this episode, we're talking about how to prime yourself out of depression and take back control. Now, I know it's the case that we all like to think that we're in charge of our own life. And it seems that way to us because we do stuff, right? We go to work, we come back from work, we take the kids to school, we have nights out. But the truth is, we aren't in control nearly as much as we think. And that's just how it is, really. But by learning a little bit more and then applying a few simple and sensible strategies, we can regain enough control to give us the edge. And this can tip us over from helpless to effective. Now, if you struggle with panic, anxiety, depression, or stress, you would probably say that you're not nearly in as much control as you'd like to be. And what we're talking about really is emotional control. You see, many of the psychological ways we respond to things are determined by other things outside of our control. So suppose on my way home I refuse to give a beggar some change and he calls me mean and uncaring. What I do next is less under my control than I might imagine. The beggar's comments are ringing in my ears, and this comment is the opposite of how I think of myself. And without even thinking about it, when I next encounter a beggar, I give much more than I might normally. So in my mind, I'm simply being who I am. But you can see that the who I am has been changed by the comments of the first beggar that I encountered. I reacted without any real awareness of this change. It just happened to me. I just embodied it. So when my self-concept is reset back to normal and my future reactions are back as they were, I go about my life unaware and I'm still not the captain of my ship. So this example is only one of many everyday examples we could find where what we do is changed by what happened before. This power effect is called priming. And in principle, it means that we're primed to act in a particular way by what we've just experienced. It happens all the time. In the normal course of events, there's little we can do about it. It's entirely unconscious. It's just the nature of things in a sense. However, suppose we use this powerful force to our own ends. It's possible to prime ourselves to be more assertive, forceful, powerful, self-assured, confident, caring, bold, intelligent, knowledgeable, and successful. Well, research evidence shows that this is exactly what we can achieve when we prime ourselves appropriately. Tons of research, and it's just about putting it into action. So this is how it works. There are two principal ways that priming works to affect you, and I want to share these with you so that you can understand the process, and we're going to try and see if we can use it. First of all, let's have a think about your repository of life memories, which basically is a fancy way of saying your memory. You have a vast neural network of memories, and this is the record of your life. Everything you've experienced is there in memory trace. So imagine that your memory is a vast library and that you can choose the book you read next. What would you choose? But the next book you choose is not a free choice. It's based on what you're thinking right now, what you're working on, what you're interested in, what mental state you're in, or what's just happened to you. Your choice is influenced by these prior things. It's not a free choice, and by free I mean that your choice is influenced by what's in your mind. It's important that you recognize that this has always been the case. It's just, and it's not unique to you either. We're all in the same boat. Throughout your life path, you've followed a string of links that make you do the next thing. And that make is in sort of commas, right? Your life path makes you do the next thing. There is little genuinely free choice in the way you might think of it. So in the scenario I just painted, your behavior is influenced by what's in your mind, what you've just experienced and how you feel, particularly, in fact, how you feel. The book you choose next is the next thing to fill your mind, and the next thing you do. Now, suppose you chose a book based on some higher, more powerful goal instead of choosing based on the last random thing that was in your head. That would give you the beginning of some real power in your life. The book you choose from the library of your memory contains the instructions for how you'll feel next. This means that if you can decide how you want to feel next, you can choose the book with the instructions for this feeling. Now, obviously by book, I'm actually meaning memory, and so perhaps we'll leave the metaphor of the library behind. And I'm simply saying that the memory you choose from your vast library of memories to occupy your consciousness, to fill your mind, determines how you will feel in the moment, and therefore determines how you'll feel next. The second way that priming works is to fit you into stereotypes of how you should act. And by this I mean that if you're a man, the stereotype is strong, non-emotional, sharing and macho, let's say. And if you're a woman, it's more like caring, supportive and emotional sharing. So these stereotypes are just that. They're shorthand descriptions that suit no one very well, but what they do is to load a program into your brain that says, this is how to think about this person, this is how to think about that person. You have stereotypes of others, and a set of stereotypes of yourself as well. And you must recognize that the stereotypes you hold don't necessarily work for you, very well at least. There's been some interesting research that has shown that you're perfectly capable of embodying negative stereotypes, and stereotypes are not always a positive blueprint. There's been some interesting research that has shown that you're perfectly capable of embodying negative stereotypes, even when they don't apply to you. As a man, you might be sharing, supportive, and emotionally available, but you're quite capable of taking on a more typical male stereotype if you're primed to do it. You'll then act in accordance with this stereotype and only afterwards wonder what on earth you were doing. So now we have two ways that priming is likely to affect you. You load a memory from your memory bank that tells you how to think, feel and act next. And the second one is, one of your stereotypes is activated. This makes you think, feel and act in accordance with its instructions. So what I propose is that we use the first way of understanding priming to your advantage. We can do this by creating a mini library of memories, cognitive content and actions that primes you to think, feel and act in the way that you want to. So deliberate priming is about occupying your consciousness with those experiences that make the next experience the one you want. Now in depression, we see a pronounced priming effect that directs attention towards words that are congruent with feeling down. This is a classic set of psychology experiments that shows when people are depressed, they embody a cognitive bias, which means that their brain is preferentially focused on processing negative and sort of depressing words and slower at processing non-depressive or cheery words. So when you're depressed, not only are you not in control of your ship necessarily, certainly not your emotional ship, but your brain is also working against you, and that reinforces your low mood. If you suffer from anxiety, and while there are a number of specific anxiety disorders, the priming effects remain consistent throughout. You'll think, feel and act in ways that prime your next thought, feeling or action, and they will push you down the path of anxiety and fear. So let's break down what you need to do to change what you think, feel and do, and so give you control over your next experience. A lot's been written about the concept of acting as if. It's like as if you think and as if you feel a particular thing. And this was really strongly conceptualized by Konstantin Stanislavski. And he's the creator of a systematic way of teaching acting, sometimes, I think incorrectly called the method school of acting. And famous that actors would be Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro. In his book, An Actor Prepares, he wrote that an actor's training should involve something more than merely physical and vocal training. His system cultivated what he called the art of experiencing, with which he contrasts the art of representation. He said it mobilizes the actor's conscious thought and will in order to activate other, less controllable psychological processes, such as the emotional experience and subconscious behavior, sympathetically and indirectly. So in rehearsal, the actor searches for inner motives to justify action and the definition of what the character seeks to achieve at any given moment. This is the task of the actor. So what Stanislavski is suggesting is that the actor can be on stage and be authentic and congruent in the role he or she is acting, through embodying the emotions, the physical presence, and the way of speaking and being. And you are acting all of the time, every day of your life. We are all acting every day of our lives. We enact our life. We present ourselves in particular ways, through walking, talking, holding yourself, what you speak, what you say, what you think, what you hear. We're all acting a part in a sense. Now this might sound fake, but in reality you're always acting as if. You're acting as if you're depressed. You're acting as if you're anxious. You're acting as if you might have a panic attack. When in reality, depression is a transient state. Anxiety is actually a transient state. It's not a permanent state. This is one of the tricks that your brain plays on you. You think that depression, certainly when you're in it, is a permanent state. But it's not. It's simply transient, and it's created by acting as if you're depressed. So when you're anxious, for instance, you're acting as if you're genuinely at threat, which means you're acting as if you're vulnerable when you're not. I don't want to sidetrack too much, because this is a topic for another day, but you're not a single unified consciousness called whatever your name is. You're a group of sub-identities that each have roles. You know, you're a worker, you may be a parent, you might be a romantic partner, you've been a child, and within you, a bit of that child lingers as an inner child that claims emotional space from time to time in the present world. Now, who doesn't, at time to time, do something childish? Who doesn't react as if to a senior family figure like a parent, but the person you're talking to isn't them? This is called transference. It's an old term coined by Freud over a century ago. So, how to create a primed pathway? Any journey can be illustrated with milestones. A milestone simply says, this is where you are, and this is how far you need to go until you reach your destination. We can create a deliberate psychological journey, and we can make milestones for it. So let's make a journey to remove the act of depression. Now, as you may be aware, you refresh your problems every day. And you may have heard me talk about this before in videos and audios. But every day is a rehearsal for the next day. So if you're depressed today, and you're actively depressed today, let's say, you're actually rehearsing being depressed tomorrow. Now, depression is a catch-all phrase that basically sums up how you feel about yourself. It has thoughts, feelings, and behaviors associated with it, and the sum total of these tells you how to feel about yourself. So how to fight depression? Your depression is almost always primed because it's not in an active state unless it's been activated, which means that you have a cluster of memories, impressions, sensations, etc., which are associated with depression, but you're sometimes more and sometimes less depressed. It depends the extent to which this representation of depression within you is activated. So your normal and natural state of nature is not to be depressed, but once it's activated, it causes a cascade of memories that tell you how to feel. It creates an avalanche of behaviors that put you into the shape of depression. It opens up the library of thoughts and speech by which you know you're depressed, and all of this creates the performance of depression. Your performance is then received in particular ways by others, which then reinforces your performance. I'm not belittling your depression, nor you for having it, but I am suggesting that by definition, therapy gets you to do something different. That is what change is, right? It's doing something different. It's feeling something different. It's thinking something different. Doing something different. So what about acting different as a way of kickstarting the process of feeling and thinking different? So we can use the techniques pioneered by Stanislavski to act in the conscious state of mind to create changes that cascade down into the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, right? And then this makes for lasting change. In other work, I've written and talked extensively about changing the beliefs you have about yourself. And of course, this is a critically important element of feeling good. But for now, why not create a new non-depressed persona that you can inhabit, and in so doing take on a mantle of greater energy and good mood. And, over time, it'll permeate down into your subconscious, and this will cement the new way of being. So let's start in imagination and allow that to percolate out to external reality. So here's the exercise I have in mind. We're going to use the power of your imagination to create a posture that's a presence, a physical position for your body that's active and strong, forceful, self-assured. So standing straight, open, that's arms not crossed but open, and expansive. Now we're doing this in imagination, but some of those things will also easily be enacted. So you can easily, while we do this, stand in an open, kind of expansive posture, looking out into the world as opposed to looking down at the ground. In your imagination, but also in actuality, wear clothes that represent how you want to think about yourself and how you want to feel, and actually how you'd like other people to see you. So for instance, if you want other people to take you seriously, well then dress in a way that you'd expect people to take you seriously. And as a little aside, many years ago when I was working in the NHS, the British National Health Service, I wanted to be promoted to a consultant, which basically means a top grade kind of professional. And so I always made a point of dressing as a consultant. Now, in Britain, consultants wear snazzy ties and they might wear snazzy socks and they wear decent shirts. So that's how I dressed. I know it sounds simple in a way, but I always dressed like a consultant. And then when I actually went for a promotion, people said, "Oh, I thought you were already a consultant." "Oh yeah, no problem at all." So the moral of that story is, A, that it worked, and B, I should have asked for a promotion earlier. So wear clothes that embody how you want people to see you. And also create a statement that sums up the you that you're creating. Now, you have your name, but you might also have a nickname for yourself. And that nickname for yourself could be a strong name. It could be a strong look on your face. It could have an associated self-assured air. So you might think of yourself as a sort of a James Bond character, or as a powerful woman, or just something that gives you like a shorthand to be able to put yourself in a posture that matches the feeling of not being depressed. I like to think about creating a mission statement that puts you in the mindset you want to create. Now, it might be something like this, and these are just sort of examples to get your mind going. I stand tall, I'm flexible and strong, and I value my opinion. Now, who wouldn't want to be able to tick that box? I appreciate people and I expect them to appreciate me. Isn't that a great way of going forward in life? I'm a good person, I have value, and I do the best I can. Well, who would want to argue with that? I'm human, not better or worse than anybody else, and I can move forward. Just a statement of truth. So, you can create a more ideal version of yourself in imagination, and you can practice this until it feels more and more like the you want. So this is how anyone really learns anything, right? You practice it, you think about it, you rehearse it. Practice and repetition, that's the key. So this doesn't mean that there's anything wrong or lacking in you as you are now. It's simply a way of accessing more strengths and resources and giving them a little more oomph. And if you think about it, if you're actively depressed, you're accessing the mood congruent or mood associated thoughts, feelings, behaviors that you're practicing today, which will ensure that you are depressed tomorrow. So when we do something different today, we are practicing having a different experience tomorrow. Now, with all of these things, you've got to put some effort into it and you've got to stick with it. You can do it for 5 minutes, but really 5 minutes in a whole day of practicing being depressed, for instance, is not such a lot. The secret is a little bit, as often as you can remember, until it really takes effect. Now, here's the interesting thing. It's perfectly possible to get rid of depression really fast. All you have to do is to consistently put yourself into a mindset where you're not rehearsing and practicing depression, but you're rehearsing and practicing something else. This is true of anxiety. We've talked about depression particularly in this episode, but it's equally true of anxiety. So I hope you found this interesting. Please subscribe to the podcast, please check out my YouTube channel and please share this wherever you think you're able to share it.